Thank you guys. Thanks everyone. Thank you to Therese and Maribel especially for putting this on. My name is Marguerite Alexis Herrera, and I am here representing the South Los Angeles community, Crenshaw District, where I was born and raised. My beautiful mom is here. She's been such a big support in my life. Can we give her a hand clap? She has been through it all on the side. And so it's really just, I'm telling my story to you today. That's what I was asked to do, to share more about my journey of faith. Laura spoke about faith. Spirituality has been a big part of my healing. Community has been a big part of my healing. My family, as well as triggering us many times, right? And so, interestingly, I will share my diagnosis later, but Laura actually mentioned some of my diagnosis, which you'll hear more about my journey. And so my story, I titled it, I changed the title every talk just because every talk is different. And so you learn kind of what is the audience needing, what are they asking for. So it's called A Story of Hope, Courage, Pain, and Resiliency, Marguerite's or my journey to healing and recovery. So I happen to work for NAMI Urban Los Angeles in South Los Angeles. Has anyone heard of NAMI Urban LA? We're in the Lumber Park area. My director is actually speaking later today. We're gonna miss each other. And we didn't know we were both speaking, so it's kind of news to both of us from a few days ago, which is fun. And then I also have my own organization. It's not a nonprofit or necessarily for-profit, but I do charge for different services that I offer, and so it's called Freedom and Soul Healing. And basically, I offer arts-based learning to groups. Some of it is donation-based, which includes my speaking work, music, Reiki, a Japanese form of healing, which you'll hear me talk about, as well as dance, art, poetry, really teaching others the art of self-soothing. I'm passionate about helping clinicians as well to understand that healing is not just therapy and psychiatry, it's a lot more broad. And I think as clinicians, I say we because I am one, even though I'm not licensed, and I will be an MSW and doctoral social worker and all of that good stuff, but we need to broaden our understanding of what does treatment look like. It's not just therapy and psychiatry. In fact, a lot of people don't like talking it out. They'd rather dance it out. You know, they'd rather cha-cha, or they'd rather do whatever they do in their community. So we need to think about other alternative ways to heal as well. That's a big focus of what my organization does. So thank you for having me. So I have some group questions, and feel free if you can kind of raise your hand, I point to you, or you want to shout it out. But I kind of want to, first of all, get a sense of who's in the room. So how many clinicians, social workers, psychiatric, whatever, are you a clinician? If you want to raise your hand. How many people are clinicians that work in the mental health field? Awesome. Can anyone shout out what they do? Back there? Did you say therapist? Oh, beautiful. Visual or performance? Or? All of it. Awesome. Anybody else want to share what they do? Drug and alcohol. That's really important. Thank you for doing that work. Thank you, both of you. So I want to kind of ask a group question, and if someone can rate, you feel free to put your hand up and I'll call on you, but what does mental health mean to you? Anybody want to answer that? It's a question, and oh, wonderful. What is your name?
Nina.
Nina, thank you. What does mental health mean to you?
It means balancing my life.
That's awesome. Balance, right? Balance is such a really important concept that I think we don't really think about. Like knowing when to take a pause, knowing when to take a breath, knowing when to slow down. Does anyone want to think about how they define mental wellness? Back here, your name?
Becky.
Thank you.
I balance my life with meditation and meditation.
Beautiful, awesome. And it's Becky, right?
Yes.
That shows me that, you can have both worlds. My treatment has been psychiatry, medicinal, I take medication every day, but it's also been meditation, prayer, yoga, all of that. So thank you for being so candid. Over here.
Having control of my rational and reasonable mind.
Ooh, that's key. Yeah. Do you want to share more? Or?
Again, several have responded, talked about balance.
Yeah.
And being able to regulate and have control of my emotions on a daily basis.
Mhm.
When I'm upset, being able to calm myself
That's awesome. And your name?
Janet.
Thank you, Janet, for sharing. Yeah, it's so important, and that's something I've struggled with my emotions, with the mental health diagnosis that I have of just balance, because some days I'm like up and some days I'm down, and it can be really tough, which is what Laura really spoke about. And so these are just questions to ponder, but I want you, as I'm talking, to think about these questions. How do you know when you feel off balance? What does feeling and being in balance, and what I call in the flow, look like? Or what does healing look like for you? Because it's not going to look the same for every patient and client that you work with, or even for yourself. So just think about those. And so what is mental health? What is a mental health condition? How is it inherited? I think most of us here are pretty educated, but for those who don't know, right, mental health includes our emotional, our psychological, our physiological, spirit, and I say spiritual being. So this was taken from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. They don't have spiritual, but I added that in because I really do believe that we are people living, we're spiritual beings in a physical body. Whether you call it Jesus, whether you call it Yahweh, Buddha, or you may not call it anything, but I do believe that we all have a spirit within us, and that we have a spirit of resiliency. And so, mental health affects us at every stage. There's biological factors that affect how we think and feel. It could be hereditary, where you have a serious mental illness. That could mean schizoaffective. It could be bipolar. It could be borderline. Or it could be just having an off day. Life experiences, trauma. How many have heard the term trauma-informed care? Right? It's getting very popular, and I'm excited that clinicians are learning that. It doesn't just stem from just chemical imbalance, but it could be from a sexual abuse, a childhood trauma, a natural disaster that causes a change in how you're thinking. And also family history, which hereditary, in my case, my father, my birth father, has mental illness in his side of the family. So, just keep checking time. All right, so mental health and physical health, we often talk about them separately, but they're actually really connected. I really do believe that we have a mind, we have a body, and we also have an inner spirit. But we know that poor physical health can lead to mental health issues, right? If you're eating a lot of things with a lot of sugar, if you're drinking coffee with sugar, sugary drinks, that's going to make your blood levels go down. You're not going to feel as happy as you could be. I find that when I'm eating plant-based foods, more vegetables, fruits, walking and exercising, I feel happier, I feel better when I'm spending time in nature. How many of you guys have like an exercise practice? You want to share yours?
Well, I just to share this with the group, like, I don't know where I picked this up, but they said that diet, exercise, and friends with a dose of spirituality is all good medicine.
Ooh.
I believe it, and you don't need a doctor's prescription.
Come on, tell it. Let's give you a hand clap. That's real. It's really real in these streets, because I say streets because I'm from the hood. I grew up in Crenshaw. I've seen gangs. I've seen it all. But it's really everything, right? It's not just that one prescription. And oftentimes psychiatry is so limited. I feel. I have a wonderful psychiatrist, Dr. Boucher. I love you. You still like, sorry, I'm trying to out. He's awesome. But he really looks at me holistically, and I love that. And it took a while to find a good psychiatrist that really could understand me. Anyway, with that question, anybody else have a good exercise practice? Over here.
I ride my bike to work,
Ooh, do you live close to work, or?
3 miles.
Oh, that's awesome. Lucky for you. And your name?
Aviva.
Thank you so much for sharing. Bicycling, that's awesome. I found that I go to Kenneth Hahn, it's in the South LA area, and I'm going before work now and just going in nature and being in the flowers. And nature actually changes your brain chemistry. You can Google that, you can do the research. It actually changes your brain chemicals. So I think encouraging your patients and clients to do something in nature, it doesn't have to cost money. You can go to the park. And so dance is a big part of my treatment, as well as gardening, hiking. And so I'm going to get into my story. That's little me. Hi, Marguerite. This is in the house that I still live in with my beautiful mom and my grandmother. You'll see a picture of my grandma, but she's 101, my mom's mother. We help take care of her, but she's really taking care of all of her 10 children and many grandchildren, so she's a big part of my story. So I grew up in South LA. I was born during the time of the LA riots, and I had this beautiful childhood. My mom really made sure that we had everything that we needed. It was 4 of us growing up. I I'm one of 7 children, but 4 of us in the home. And so that's me. You can probably tell I'm a little creative. I have colors, like I have colors on today. And so I have been playing piano since the age of 3. Any instrumentalists in the room? Musicians in the room? What do you play? Beautiful. Any other instruments? Okay. Well, music has been a big part of my journey of healing as well. So I'm a pianist, and from a young age, I started playing piano. And again, young me didn't have any issues emotionally, didn't have any signs of mental illness or anything. So I had a pretty typical childhood. And as we're gonna fast forward to high school, middle school, high school, this was the first event I ever put on called Spotlight on Youth. It was at my church, Christ the Good Shepherd Church in South LA. And this is the youth group. I was very involved. I created the event myself. It was free for the community. And it was my first arts-based event that I decided to put on. Growing up in elementary, I put on talent shows. I was always dancing to Destiny's Child with my classmates, and so I was always very artistic. But again, pretty normal childhood, really happy child. High school graduation, so I have a collage here. Art projects have been a big part of my therapy. In the clinical world, they're calling it now expressive arts therapy. And so these are, Black history has been a big part of my identity. I identify as Black African American, also Guyanese and Belizean. My mom is from Belize in Central America, so I have Malcolm X up here, President Obama, Michelle Obama, W.E.B. Du Bois, and so creating, again, early on, always creative. And you have my mom here when I graduated high school, and so then I went off to a great college, Williams College. Anybody heard of it? Massachusetts? Ooh, love Williams. Most people don't know about it on the West Coast. But it's a wonderful liberal arts school, and it's one of the top liberal arts colleges above Princeton, Harvard, Yale for many years. And so I went to the #1 college in the country. I was a 4.3 weighted GPA, 3.9, had this stellar, again, track record, was the president of the Black Student Union, had all A's, AP classes, you name it, no issues. But I have a sibling, and I'm going to keep some of it confidential, but I have a sibling who displayed very early signs of mental illness, and my sibling has bipolar disorder, so I had been really exposed to what does mental health look like, some of the crisis episodes, my sibling getting into mania, and so I had seen what that looked like, and I'd seen her setbacks. However, I never had issues, right? I was doing pretty well and got into a great school, went across country to Massachusetts. It's my best friend from college, Kelia. She's awesome. She's married. She's been married to her husband for 5 years, and just one of my biggest supports in my life. She lives in the Bay Area now, and she's a doula, so she helps women during their birth experience, and so that's her. And then I was the co-director of the gospel choir for one of my semesters, so music, still a big part of the picture. And I will sing a song for you guys later, so you hear. And so Williams. And so during my time at Williams, I had a lot of awesome experiences. I didn't come from money, but I have a privileged background. I've been able to travel to I think 10 countries at the age of 27 years old. I've been to 20 states. I've really had a lot of world experience. So I was able to teach after my freshman year. I taught English in Guatemala. And so these are some of the students I taught at the girls' school and I taught at a boys' school. So that was the summer after freshman year. And then I did an internship in New York City that's not pictured here in the summer of 2012. So working for a nonprofit, an arts-based organization. And then junior year I got to study abroad. So this is in Barcelona on the left, and then this is the Colosseum in Rome. And so I actually studied in Madrid. Anybody been to Spain? Ooh, awesome. It's a great country. I would live there as another life later. And so Spain was awesome. 5 months studying abroad, and I'm getting to the meat of my mental health story. But again, I had honestly a picture perfect, typical, creative, straight student, great friendships, no issues. And so I think we're gonna backspace here. So I'm gonna share more of my story here. It's gonna be a little meatier on this section. I'm just checking time. But basically, so I got to Spain 2013. So it was January to May. Beautiful time, got fluent in Spanish, all of these great things. And then I'd come home, and I was home for about a month, and during this period, I started having these interesting thoughts. They were very foreign to me. I started hearing voices. It didn't start with voices, but basically I started, I'm trying to put it in words, but my mind got for a second. I started to question a lot. I grew up Christian and in a faith-based household, but I started questioning thoughts about death and dying. I remember being like, is God real? Who is God? Who is Jesus? And then it went to heaven and hell thoughts, and then it just kept spiraling. And my mom was really concerned. I was actually getting ready to travel again. I was always on the go. I was traveling back to my college to visit friends that were graduating, was going to a business program at Dartmouth College. And so I still traveled, but I went through 3 weeks of no sleeping, barely any sleep, and then all this fears about death and dying, and I was like, what's going on? But I didn't really know that it could be mental illness. I don't know if my mom had a suspicion, but with that said, I ended up getting to the business program at Dartmouth. I was on a fully funded scholarship there for an intense summer business program, and during that time, the voices intensified, and I started hearing voices saying, you're gonna die. And I was even calling my Williams friends and basically like having them pray with me and being like, what's going on? You know, let's get these evil spirits out of me. I thought it was the devil. And then I had a night of harming myself, and I actually turned myself into the hospital. The director of the program, this was in New Hampshire, I said, I need to go to the hospital. I don't know what's going on. I feel like stuff is not right. So interestingly, I was very cognizant of like, this isn't me, I don't know what's happening. And then I was hospitalized. It was my one hospitalization in the last 6 years. I've never had one after that, but during that time, I was at Dartmouth Hitchcock Hospital, and basically was in a psychiatric ward. They took everything away from me. I was terrified, but they actually had arts-based treatment there. They had a piano room, they had art creative, which was great. My mom had to fly out, come get me, and so that was the early signs. I was in a psychosis. Came back to LA at the time. My psychiatrist that we worked with didn't know what the diagnosis was. Over time, my first diagnosis was schizoaffective disorder, which many of you know includes major depressive episodes, as well as suicidal ideation. And so basically I went through treatment that summer, started back at Williams in the fall, had to come home again. I got depressed at school. So I took a semester off from school and worked with a really awesome dialogical behavioral therapist in the Westwood area. Does anybody know what DBT is, that treatment? Awesome. So, you know, for people that know, dialogical behavioral therapy is one of the main treatments for borderline personality disorder, which is my new diagnosis, and I'll share a little bit about that. But basically, it's Marshall Linehan created in the 1990s, and it includes a lot of thoughts about non-judgment, self-compassion, self-soothing activities, and wise mind, and learning how to like calm yourself down. And so, with that said, I worked with this therapist. And then I went back to school. So I will go to the next slide. And I ended up graduating in December 2014, a semester later than most of my classmates. And so I got my bachelor's degree in American Studies and my minor in Africana Studies and Spanish. So this is two of my sisters that I grew up with. A lot of people flew out for my graduation from LA, my aunt, siblings, my mom, and that's me. So I'm really glad that I finished school and was able to finish. Let me see what the next slide is. Okay, that's later. And so after I finished school, this was December 2014, I went back to graduate in June 2015, and so basically during this period, the last 5 years, I had had really great work experiences, but filled with a lot of ups and downs emotionally. So again, the first couple years, my diagnosis was schizoaffective, and I feel like I'm kind of rushing, but I'm trying to make sure you get some of the story and have time for questions. And so I've dealt with, most of it has been suicidal ideation over the last 5 years. I've dealt with intense situations of wanting to die, depression. I've never had a suicide attempt, by God's grace, because I really believe my faith in God and my arts-based therapy has healed me, and it's protected me because I'm just too scared to try anything because I know God loves me. So that's been a big part of my healing. And then when my diagnosis changed to borderline personality disorder, I've been through treatment programs at UCLA, the UCLA Resident Outpatient Partial Hospitalization Program twice. My first time going in was more depression. However, last year, 2018, I was there for about a month. It's not residential, but outpatient. I came in with rage and anger issues. I mean, my mom knows, and I'm candid with my story. I was cursing and getting angry at home, and I was like, what is going on? We didn't know what was going on. But my mom knew, and she's a nurse, that she was like, this has to be something different. And so my diagnosis after the program changed to borderline personality disorder. And for those who may not know, BPD is difficult because you're dealing with a lot of emotional ups and downs. It can be like you're feeling great for 5 hours and then that next 5 is really awful. And then you can feel like a lot of suicidal ideation. A lot of it has been circumstantial. So if a stressful event happens or a family issue happens, I may take it to heart and then I may feel bad about myself. So a lot of shame and guilt. And I've had therapists, I still work with therapists, but I've also had other forms of treatment, like I work with a life coach who helps me with my career, but also holistically. I work with an astrology coach. This is very different stuff to the clinical world. She helps me relate to the planets, and it's not for everybody. And she helps me relate my emotions to the planets, and I also work with a Reiki practitioner. So my healing has been holistic, which we'll get into more of my organization and what I do, but it's really because my family has been very patient with me. NAMI has been a big part of my treatment. Working at NAMI Urban LA, being able to have NAMI as a platform to speak, because it really opened up doors. And so that's a little bit more about my diagnosis. And so I'm gonna kind of get into, you'll hear me talk about my story more, but Freedom and Soul Healing, it is basically, you could call it a company, an organization. I'm still forming it, but basically it's an organization at the end of the day, where the mission is we use the arts as activism to promote positive mental wellness through a holistic health and restorative justice lens. And so basically I work alongside a friend of mine who's a yoga instructor, and then I have another colleague who does our creative content. And the mission is we go out into the community. It could be a school, it could be your agency, it could be a women of color group or a women's group, whatever. But the mission is we want to teach people how to self-soothe through other ways. I educate and connect people to resources like mental health resources in their community, psychiatry. We educate on talk lines, etc. And basically giving people hope that you can overcome and you're not alone. And so this is just a flyer of what we do. I wanted to share that my cards are in the back on the table on the left, and if you want to sign up on my email list and see more of what I do, I'm a singer as well. And so we basically incorporate music, the arts into our workshops. I play piano. You'll see a little bit of a clip of what we kind of do, and we work at donation-based yoga studios as well and have donation-based healing circles. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what we do. And educate, the mission is to educate and empower communities on mental health through a trauma-informed lens. So educating people through things like music, yoga, Reiki, having a discussion piece, so educating around what are the community clinics in your area, what are the psychiatrists in your area, how do you develop a really good self-care ritual at night, what is your morning ritual? I think rituals are really important to healing. And we do this, right, by hosting workshops in your community or your agency. And I'm really passionate about bringing this to clinicians as well. I think clinicians can learn from people with lived experience. Oftentimes in the clinical world, we're like, you know, people with lived experience don't know anything. We actually know the most because we've lived it. You know, and I think that needs to be important, that you try to work with people that, you know, are doing well, that are functioning. And I think we need to stop this jargon that we're incapacitated. We're not incapacitated. We just may have challenges other people have. I'm not abnormal. I just happen to have other challenges that are different from some people. So, this is the team, the people I mentioned. Tracy Tan is a graduate of UCLA. Lauren Ross is a friend of mine in the community that does yoga and events, and she's vegan as well. I'm not vegan, but I really promote a plant-based diet. Any vegans in the room? I saw you clapping. Yes. I'm not vegan, but I'm kind of moving there. So anyway, so I'm just going to highlight some of my accomplishments and community workshops so you can get a sense of what that looks like. So that's a workshop at the Tree Yoga South LA. The Tree South LA They're a wonderful donation-based yoga studio in South Los Angeles. I would write them down. I have a slide with their information, so they're a really great resource. So that's some of the flyers I've done for my workshops, where we've incorporated music and people are doing yoga and they're laying down. You'll see a video. And my nephew was pointing on the right, that picture. And then we have my mom here, and then Dr. Zarif in the middle. He's someone who's become a dad, mentor for me in the community. He's a naturopathic doctor and educates the community on plant-based eating and how that affects your brain. So yeah, these are some of my accomplishments. And then what is Reiki? So who has heard of Reiki in here? Ooh, a lot of people. Who wants to take share their understanding of it? In the front? Do you want to share? Anybody? Oh, yeah, go ahead. Your name?
My name is Matthew.
Awesome.
I don't know much about Reiki, but whenever I hear the name, I think energy healing.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you, Matthew. So Reiki, we're actually about to do a little short exercise. I'm going to guide you guys in a meditative exercise. But Reiki, thank you, it is energy healing. So it's actually, just so you know, for a lot of the people that are really used to thinking about Western psychology, it is used in hospitals. Reiki is in Cedars-Sinai, Reiki is at UCLA, and they're using it with veterans. And so Reiki is a Japanese form of healing, and it means universal life energy. It was created in the 1800s, discovered in the 1800s, and basically it is a palm healing technique. So I'm using my palm. Usually these are some of my clients, and they're laying on a massage table, which I have a Reiki room, and basically I'm helping rebalance their chakras. Chakras are energy points in the body that relate to different emotions, and this is very different for a lot of clinicians. They're not used to thinking about natural healing, but we've got to start bringing it in. And so chakras, basically, when your chakras are out of balance, like root chakra is right here, and it relates to your groundedness, connectedness to the earth, you may feel imbalanced, your emotions may be off, and so Reiki helps to clear negative energy and helps to restore life-giving energy into your body. And sometimes I may be touching you, but I always ask my clients, do they want to be touched, or do my hands are 6 inches above their body? And basically Reiki, I'm not a healer. I heal through my gifts, but Reiki facilitates what it needs to do, and clients feel better. People are happier. Like I said, it is in hospitals, and you can Google it and learn more about it, but it's a really great tool. So yes, there's a question.
You mentioned right here. Can you explain where that area is? Because I am visually impaired, so I'm trying to.
Sure. Yes, thank you for sharing. And can you tell me your name? Lene. Yeah, so Reiki, basically, so there's different chakras. So the top part of your head is the crown chakra that relates to your connectedness to like the earth, the divine, your higher self. And then you have throat chakra, which is around the throat area, which relates to how you express yourself. Then you have the heart chakra, relates to your connectedness to your heart and how you express your love for people. And then there's, I think I'm confusing, but then there's solar plexus and sacral. Solar is above, I believe above the stomach, and sacral relates to creativity. Root chakra is right below, it's like above the thighs area. And so again, this is pretty new for a lot of people, and people don't fully understand natural healing, and that healing doesn't just have to be medicinal, but again, I'm really trying to help expand that narrative. So I'm gonna lead us in a meditation exercise real quick. Okay, so I brought some props, and I'm at my 30-minute marker, so I have a few more slides. But I have some props here that I brought to show you guys kind of what I do with people in my sessions. And so crystals, oh no, it's okay. Crystals are minerals from the earth, so they're found in different countries. So this is rose quartz, and this helps relates to clearing like your heart chakra and helps you find more love. And so can everybody put their hand on their heart? And feel free, if you don't feel comfortable to do this, you don't have to. But we're gonna take a deep inhale, and we're gonna inhale, and we're gonna exhale. We're gonna inhale peace, exhale love. We're gonna inhale joy, exhale abundance. And we're gonna inhale one more time, and we're gonna exhale. And so with meditation, what I do with my clients is that Reiki, this is also part of Reiki deep breathing, is that it helps you to de-escalate your emotions, right? So if we think about incorporating meditation, You can also give yourself Reiki by putting your hands on your forehead, your hands on your heart and deep breathing. You'll start to feel that you're going to be calmer. And so this is a Tibetan singing bowl. A lot of people attend sound baths in LA. The natural healing world is getting more popular. So I'm just going to play this so you can hear how it sounds. But there's research on it, but it helps to really calm your brainwave lengths down. So hold on one second. I also use this in my workshops and with clients. And then I have the Crystal Bible, which is a really popular book that teaches about crystals. I'm wearing a crystal, and they have healing powers. A lot of the crystals cleanse your negative energy. And so a lot of people in the South LA community, particularly Black and brown folks, are really learning about natural healing and learning how to incorporate this into their daily life. And again, I feel like there may be limitations, right? If you're working in the hospital or the clinic, they're going to say, what is this? But it actually really works for people. And I also try to teach people that if this doesn't resonate with you, find something that does. Cooking at home, watching your favorite TV show, reading a good book. And so me singing as well, I put out my album as well. It's on all digital platforms. I've curated panels. This is at LMU. This is an event in the community through NAMI. And I always just try to share my story and encourage people that they can overcome. And then I'm just going to play a short clip. We're going to do a couple more minutes and then give you time for questions, a few minutes. So let me just try to get this open here. Okay, right here. So this is one of the workshops I did at the tree, and these are people doing yoga, and I'm playing piano. My friend is leading us. Can you guys hear it? It's a little low. This is at the Tree, South LA. It's a donation-based yoga studio. This was a year ago. So that's just a clip of what we do and what my mission is and how we go out and spread more about holistic health to people. And so this is just a picture of my album. It's called I Am. My cards are in the back, and basically my grandmother's on the cover, my mom, and me as a baby. And I Am is an album that I worked on for 2 years, and music has been a big part of my therapy, where I was creating with my producer in the studio and telling my story of hope and resiliency and social justice. And so community, we're almost done, so I want to be mindful of time. So these are a lot of my beautiful friends. I've struggled a lot in relationships. I've had some wonderful friends who stuck it out with me, but I've had 6 people walk away in 6 months in LA. And like Laura was saying about borderline personality disorder, it's a lot about relationships and instability, and people didn't understand some of the things I was going through, and that was tough. And I went through suicidal periods, feeling alone, but my friends are cross country. Many of them are not here, but they're really supportive. And so these are just some images of a lot of my friends in Boston, in LA. On the right, we have in Disneyland, my elementary school best friends. They've been friends with me for 20 years. And then friends in New York, I visited, my family in the middle, my siblings, and community is really important. I think just finding people that resonate with you. And I think meetup.com, that's a good way to find close-knit groups. If you have a hobby, knitting, sewing, you can refer your patients and say, try to join a meetup group, and maybe they can find passion through there. And so this is my mom, and when we went to Nashville, and my grandmother, and I just want to highlight them because having my mom and my grandmother has been a big part of my healing journey. They really understood my mental health when nobody else did. They never judged me, and it's tough for parents. It's really tough. My mom sometimes can't talk to me. She's like, you talk too much. She's tired because I have a lot of emotions. But I call talk lines, referring your clients to these talk lines is important. I'm gonna skip that. So I have a list of like talk lines. NamiUrbanLA.org, our resources page has a lot of great information from the Trevor Project, LA Warm Line, 211, NYC Well is not up here, but it's a really great resource. It's 24/7 crisis, non-crisis support. I call them all the time. First of all, I don't want to bother my therapist, even if I had one, which I don't yet, but I will. But you know, it's just, they have lives too. Top lines are 24/7, so I think when we're always telling patients and clients, help yourself, well, sometimes you need to talk to somebody, you need somebody trained. So talk lines are really useful. And then here's some creative community resources. If you want to take a picture of this, it's a good page. Feel free to, again, get my contact if you want to email me for some of this information. But the Tree South LA, or some open mics and some local coffee shops. This is more in South Los Angeles, but you know, creativity, I think, is going to spark a lot of healing for a lot of people. And then we're almost done here. And so this is what I want to end with, my quote. It's not my quote, but if people know about Brené Brown, I'm sure you guys know who she is. She's a famous doctoral scholar, social worker, researcher. She just came out with a Netflix documentary called, I think, something about courage. So she studies vulnerability, courage, and shame. And so this is the quote that says, owning your story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy. The experiences that make us the most vulnerable. Only, and I mean only, when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. Brené Brown. So thank you guys for being here. That's the end of my talk. And that's my contact information. My pronouns are she and her. And my website is freedomandsoulhealing.com. You can sign up on my email list, and I'd love to talk further. And you know, if you ever want me to come out and speak to your group, I'm happy to do that because I really have a deep passion for this work, and I want to help people know that they're not alone. And I have way more to share, but you can only share so much in 40 minutes. So thank you guys for having me. Do I have like time for 2 questions? Oh, they want me to sing. Okay, sorry. So I will share my voice, my other voice. So this is a chorus from one of my songs on my album called Road to Recovery, and it's about particularly Black empowerment and overcoming things like police brutality, community violence. So, are we on a road to